Glad to be back with you here. Watkins Glen International, the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams. Getting set for a 90-minute practice on this beautiful road course. 7 turns in the Finger Lake region of central New York.
They have an interesting situation here. We'll look at that, talk about that in just a second. But how about that 18 car of Kyle Busch? 9 consecutive top 2 finishes.
Ties the Iron Man, Jack Ingram, former Nationwide Series competitor.
You see Mike Bliss there, 6th in the points. Mike has been relieved of his driving duties in that one car. Actually, here this week, Ryan Newman is in that one car.
Yeah, Bliss and James Finch part ways, even though Bliss 6th in points. Series veteran Jason Keller inside the top 10. We talked about Mike Bliss. We'll take a look at some of the news and notes in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Scott Lagasse Jr. released from the number 11 car.
Yeah, Scott was 12th in the points, and Denny Hamlin is actually in that car this week, possibly next week at Michigan, and they're working on maybe getting Denny in that car some more in 2009.
Guess Hamlin just likes that number 11.
You like to stick with what you're comfortable with. 17 of guys, doing double duty this weekend, and it'd be interesting to see how fast they get up to speed in their respective cars, because some of them didn't get an opportunity to go test, like they normally do in their Cup cars. So it'd be interesting to see what they come up with as far as this nationwide stuff is concerned.
Joey Logano back in the 20 car this week. Brad Coleman's been driving that car for a lot of the summer months, but going back to his teammate Kyle Busch. Another record he's trying to tie this week is he has led a lap in 18 consecutive races. The record for consecutive races to lead a lap is Sam Ard at 19. So he can tie that record this week.
Sam Ard, another great then Busch Series driver. You see Kevin Harvick in the 33 car. Big field here, 49 cars here. 43 positions.
And it's a lot of good road racers that we know will qualify well and race well that are outside the top 30. Remember, the Nationwide Series, it's the top 30 in owner points that's locked in. So this is going to be a tough field to qualify. But what I was going to talk about, I love this qualifying format for the Nationwide Series at a road course. They get all their practice today, but tomorrow it will be what we call European style qualifying. They'll put groups of cars out there. Some groups will have 5 cars, some groups will have 6, and it's kind of based on how fast you were in practice, and you get 5 minutes, which when you look at how long it takes to get around this racetrack, it'll be roughly 4 laps, so you get a second shot unlike you would in Sprint Cup.
You know what, Larry, I hate to correct you on that, but I was down in the NASCAR trailer asking a question about the qualifying session with Joe Ballish, the director of the series. And I used that phrase, European style. He said, no. This is what you call NASCAR Nationwide Series road course qualifying. Nothing to do with European.
I believe it got me on a technicality.
What's
got me concerned, he's broke his laptop
I know.
out.
What are you doing with a computer? What are you doing?
I'm gonna watch cartoons. After watching you two clowns.
YouTube. I'm gonna watch YouTube.
Work on my MySpace.
Yeah. Steve Wallace in the 66.
There's a lot of good information on the computer.
Oh, you're just now figuring that out.
Well, I figured it out, but a lot of times transferring it doesn't work.
I want to go to YouTube and watch you falling out of your chair in the Hollywood Hotel.
I thought maybe you want to see me get hit in the back of the head of the baseball again.
I've seen that too.
He has a lot of highlights on YouTube.
Yep.
Well, all the way you make highlight reels, you got to be doing something. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, you got to be doing something.
As long as they call your name, right, Jeff?
That there might not be the smartest thing in the world to have happen. I understand sometimes when you go in front of a judge, they call your name.
Yeah.
Here's Brad Keselowski in this 88 car, the winner from Iowa last week, and he also was the winner of that $75,000 bonus that they have. It's called the Nationwide Dash for the Cash. So pretty good payday for Brad in this 88 group, sitting 3rd in the points.
Great crowd out there at Iowa. Rusty Wallace designed that track. Fantastic weekend.
I got a question for you, Mr. NFL football fan.
Come on now.
Uh-oh.
Because I couldn't get to the bottom of this. Yesterday, Brad visited the New York Jets training camp.
Yeah.
But what I don't understand, all it listed was called Sunny Cortland. Where is Sunny Cortland?
State University of New York. That's the State University system of New York.
It must be in Cortland.
Correct.
Okay, in New York.
Now, we had this argument 5 years ago when we asked Matt Kent. I asked Matt Kenseth on trackside about going to camp with the Packers. And you made fun of me because you assumed that it was logically in Green Bay, which it is, but not all NFL teams practice in their hometown.
Just like the Carolina Panthers do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm beginning to get a hold of these.
Hey, just so you know, Cortland State Red Dragons.
The Red Dragons. Okay. Well, that's where Mr. Keselowski was yesterday. Randy, please get me out of this mess I've put myself into.
Yeah, a little bit more on Brad Keselowski. I just talked to Tony Erie Sr. We call him Pops here in the garage area, and I asked him about the race car that they're entering here this weekend. Same car that they had here last year. Now, Brad only has 4 road course starts to his credit, but 2 times he's finished in the top 10. Pretty good. Not to mention a 6th here last year. So they decided to go ahead, bring that true tried car back up here. Of course, Brad comes in here 3rd in points. I wouldn't call him a sleeper, but he's certainly done a great job on these road course races. And look for him to run up front here. So they're going to go out there, feel it out, make sure that they got the car underneath them, and they're going to fine-tune it from there, guys.
And you know, all Brad can do right now is just keep running till his tongue hangs out.
Yep.
Trying to reel in that 60 and that 18 car, which is obviously going to be a very tall order. But, you know, they have to feel good that him being a full-time Nationwide Series driver, not running full-time in the Sprint Cup, even though he has a win now in Sprint Cup, is just behind those 2 guys, Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards.
What you're trying to say is you need for those 2 basically to get into a battle and take themselves out and give him a chance.
Several weeks in a row.
Exactly.
Justin Allgaier in the 12 car. A lot of traffic here in Nationwide Series practice.
3 wide.
Yeah, this is not what you want to see
No.
in practice at Watkins Glen. Now, that 16 car this week is Greg Biffle, and he's first on the practice
And
sheet.
what did we talk about? Greg Biffle's been out there running around, getting his rhythm back, and all of a sudden he's blasting up through these guys. He's got a pretty good feel for this racetrack, and I guess a lot of confidence in his race car. He's making it look awful easy coming up through there.
Jason Keller in the 27 car. He had a good finish at Iowa. Let's go to Hermie Sadler.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Look at this number 29 Holiday Inn Express car. It says Clint Boyer, but Clint Boyer is not in the Nationwide Series garage. Actually, Jeff Burton is going to hop behind the wheel of this number 29 car. Now, Jeff Burton has got 4 top 10s and 6 career starts here in the Nationwide Series, but they had a little contest going on, as you guys have talked about off and on this year, and Clint Boyer gets his name on the car for the rest of the year, and Jeff Burton has got to get in there and look at that name every time he crawls inside this race car, Burnsy.
And I was talking to Jeff about that at Chicagoland Speedway a few weeks ago, and he pretty much anticipated that was going to be what the deal was. And it was killing him to crawl in a car that had Clint Boyer's name above the door for the rest of the year.
And Clint was so happy about that on trackside last week. Early in NASCAR Nationwide Series practice, Greg Biffle is the quickest, followed by Steve Wallace, David Reagan, and Brad Keselowski. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nationwide Series practice from Watkins Glen is brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, the official auto insurance provider of NASCAR. Beautiful sunny day here in Watkins Glen, New York. Finger Lakes region of central New York.
There's Jason Leffler in the 38 car. Comes in here 4th in the series points. And you know, when we were doing Sprint Cup Series practice, we were talking about the 2 road course events in the Sprint Cup and Infineon back in June, and here the only 2 that they run. Well, this is the first of 2 road course races that the Nationwide Series will embark upon in about 3 weeks on a Cup off weekend. They'll be back in Montreal, Canada. We don't go to Mexico City anymore like we've done the last 4 or 5 years, but their next one and final one will be Montreal the end of August.
Jason had a really good run last week over at Iowa, finished up 3rd.
I mean, he's had a great season. 6 top 5 finishes, 16 top 10s, but we certainly know the one thing, we had him on our trackside show a few weeks ago that he feels like's missing. He wants to get back to victory lane. Got Toyota's very first win in the Nationwide Series a couple of years ago at what used to be IRP, now ORP, but has not been to victory lane in 2009.
Looked to me like somebody has let a tire come apart here. A lot of debris there.
10 minutes into this practice, we have caution. Marcus Ambrose, the defending champion of this race, and he is going to defend that title. He's 7th overall right now.
That's in the inner loop or the bus stop area. And you'll see a lot of cars come straight through right there. And a lot of them's completed a run, and there's no harm, no foul in practice. Now, in the race, if you miss the bus stop of the inner loop, what you have to do if you don't want to get penalized, is you have to stop. And any cars that were running in front of you, you have to make sure they go all the way through the bus stop or the inner loop, and then you can pick back up speed and blend back in. If you do that, there's no penalty.
Well, Randy, in our cup practice just recently completed, Joe Nemechek blew a motor. How's he doing here?
Well, they're yet to get on the racetrack, Steve. Joe getting ready to go ahead and buckle up in the 87 car. Once again, this car as well as the Cup car, unsponsored, but as you know, got no laps over there in the Cup Series. He just told me that this is now his practice car for the Cup Series. He's a little bit concerned, maybe even a lot concerned. He doesn't know the braking points. He has no idea what to do when he gets in that Cup car, because the first laps on the racetrack are going to be qualifying. So he's going to go out here, try to get some laps, get this car underneath him if he can, and then go ahead and try to translate some of those braking points to the Cup car, which you have to admit would be a little bit different. Just one other thing about Joe Nemechek, probably doesn't give enough credit. He has, I think, 4 top 5 finishes here in the road courses, and he's pretty good over the course of his career. So Joe Nemechek under a little bit of pressure here right now. Let's go to Hermie Sadler.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. And Denny Hamlin, we mentioned earlier, is in the 11 car this weekend for Scott Legacy, who was released. Now, Denny took him a little bit longer to get fitted in the car, get his belts adjusted, but he did go to the shop last week and fit himself in this race car. Now, although Denny did not personally test this 11 car, Brad Coleman went down to Kershaw, South Carolina last week with this CJM Motorsports team to kind of dial this car in, but Denny just made his way to pit road and will be going on the racetrack for his first laps in the 11 car shortly, guys.
All right, thank you very much. Handsome Hermie Sadler under caution for some tire debris.
You know, back to Joe Nemechek, he also sat on the pole here for the Nationwide Series race back in 1997. So he knows his way around this racetrack. It's going to be so hard, like Jeff and I were talking, other than just getting the rhythm of the racetrack, to relate a whole lot of things from this Nationwide Series car to that car over in the Sprint Cup Series garage.
Yeah, you can't just hang your helmet on that for sure. But you know, Joe started out being a road course racer from Florida before we ever got into Cup stuff.
We'll clean up the debris and be right back to Watkins Glen. The shy one, Kenny Wallace, on the heels of 2 consecutive top 10 finishes. He's 11th in points coming into the road course here at Watkins Glen. Larry just looked at me funny. It's actually 13th in points.
Just
oh well.
Double check it.
Sorry about that. Let's go to Hermie.
Yeah, guys, we're watching some work being done on the 47 car, Marcus Ambrose, who is defending his race win here at Watkins Glen. Now, he came in and the front valance was just about ripped off the front of the car, and I stuck my head in the window and wrongly accused him of going off the racetrack, and he said that did not happen. They just from his normal braking on the racetrack, they had so much valance on the front of this car trying to get it sealed off to the racetrack that when he got on hard in the brake, it really knocked the front of the valance off. So they're going to repair that and get Marcos back on the racetrack here in just a moment, but a little bit of new car blues for these guys.
Hey, the thing is right now, Hermie, correct me if I'm wrong, but Frankie Kerr and a lot of the guys that are helping him not only on the Cup side or over here on the Nationwide side also. Is that right?
He really does. He's got his tire specialist and Frankie Kerr and some of those guys. You're exactly right. Jeff Hammond over here working on this Nationwide car as well, and a big deal for Marcos. I mean, a good opportunity to get more lap time, but you know, Larry McReynolds can talk about this too. I know this is the road course, and why would they want the front of that car sealed off so much? But a lot high-speed corners at this racetrack, and you want as much downforce as you can possibly get.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that, Hermie, because as we had a shot of these nationwide cars coming up that straightaway from turn 5 to turn 6, to see how high they're off the ground. You can see it on Carl Edwards here, but watch when he goes under braking, getting down into the corner and the car travels. You see the front end travel, where if you go back to that's the biggest difference in the Sprint Cup Series cars and these cars today, is the travel is so limited on the Sprint Cup Series car because of that front splitter, is they're trying to keep that splitter down on the ground all the way around the racetrack. You look at these cars, they're way off the ground, maybe 8, 9, 10 inches the front end. On the straightaways, when they go down in the corner, especially on the braking, it travels down and almost seals off. See how high it is? You can see even a lot of the suspension parts under the front of that car on the straightaways.
Carl Edwards, 7th quickest in his Ford. Larry, I figured out my Kenny Wallace mistake.
You were looking at a past season stat.
Yeah, he's 13th, which is the highest he's been since finishing 11th back in 2006. I was partly right.
You were close.
Yeah, it's close.
We're in the same neighborhood on the same block. I was opposite ends.
You don't even have to look in your book. When you look at this 18 car, you know he's the points leader right now, 207 points over Carl Edwards in that 60 car.
Hey, how about earlier this week, he said that he may not run the entire Nationwide Series schedule next year.
And actually, his brother Kurt Busch, in a statement last week, even challenged him that maybe he needs to take a little focus off that Nationwide Series car on the Cup car. I'm not sure I agree with that. I know it can be tough on some weekends. I just think right now the 18 Cup cars gotten off rhythm and gotten off base a little bit.
Taking a look at Justin Marks in the 10 car. Had the privilege of doing the ARCA REMAX Series race at Pocono last week with Kyle Petty and Wendy Venturini also on that broadcast. And Justin Marks had quite a run, doing a good job in the ARCA Series.
Whoop, a little loose right there, Steve-O.
Yes, indeed, driving the car for Braun Racing here.
And right now he is 12th quickest, and the plan, this is the first race he's running in this particular car, but the plan is to run here, Montreal, and there's Robbie Gordon making a rare Nationwide Series start in the 55 car. He's off the racetrack, but he did not get all the way into the kitty liver, sand trap, pea gravel, whatever you want to call it.
He ain't getting too much trouble.
So he was able to drive out of it.
And Robbie currently right now is 6th quickest in early part of this Nationwide Series practice, and undaunted, he just went ahead and caught another gear, and let's do it again.
Jeff, we mentioned that he has a win here in Sprint Cup Series competition as we watch Robbie Gordon up at the top of the hill.
Loose getting into the corner. That is a very tough corner there. It's one of the few left-hand corners that we have. And like we were talking, you're trying to put as much rear brake into it as you can to make the car turn under braking. Sometimes a little too much rear brake, sometimes turning a little too good.
Yeah, exactly right. But I think right now, Glen Boyer may want to take a look at this is how you need to do it, Glen. If you're going to get loose in that corner, stay out of that sand trap.
Robbie Gordon has 5 Nationwide Series starts here at the Glen. Best finish, 2nd. He's done that twice.
And you know, one of those second place finishes may well be one of the most exciting road course races that we've ever seen when he was battling Kurt Busch, who ended up winning the race. Those guys were all over each other the last 5, 6, 7 laps of that race.
From a racing standpoint and a fan standpoint, yes, I'd agree with you. That's probably one of the most impressive dog-eat-dog, get-at-it done races I've ever seen here at Watkins Glen or any road course.
Early in this practice, Kevin Harvick is the quickest. He's followed by Greg Biffle, Paul Menard, Joey Logano, and Denny Hamlin. Now, Robbie Gordon jumps up into the 3rd spot, followed by Paul Menard.
A lot of people in the garage area had kind of tabbed him along with Ron Fellows, who's driving the 5 car, and they really expected those guys to be quick. Now, we're currently looking at the top 3, Kevin Harvick, Greg Biffle, and Robbie Gordon, along with Paul Menard, kind of leading the charge here.
I think when you look at the fact of Robbie Gordon, Boris said, guys like that being go-or-go homers, a go-or-go homer could very well sit on the pole tomorrow.
30 of our 49 drivers have been on the track in this nationwide practice. 23 minutes into a 90-minute NASCAR Nationwide Series practice. Kevin Harvick is the fastest. Randy Pemberton standing by with a driver who is second quick.
There's a whole lot going on the 16 car for Greg Biffle right now, but fortunately for him, none of it's underneath. So they were, like you said, they're pretty quick. All this stuff is for driver comfort in there, or should I say driver safety, and I guess performance, Greg. What you got going on? You've been cutting and welding padding in there for about 5 minutes.
Just trying to get my head straight up and down. You know, we had it, you know, set up for oval track padding, so the real close on my right side. So all these corners are right-handed, and I didn't have a chance to come sit in this car earlier. Just got here today, so. Just changing the pad around a little bit, and it'll be good.
Awfully critical. What about pedals, steering wheel, all that? You got to go through all those things and have them just right for yourself.
Yeah, the guys do a great job. They had that all set up. They got great measurements, but I just failed to move the headrest. We don't actually move the headrest. We just move the pad around, and that's one thing we didn't get to.
Car good?
Car's real good.
Okay. Hermie Sadler?
Well, standing about Marcus Ambrose. Now, you had an adventurous one lap on the racetrack so far. Tell us what happened.
Well, we over-traveled the front of the car and knocked the front splitter off it, and we caused our own caution pretty much. I just want to go out there and get a good feel for it. But, yeah, we just over-traveled the front just a little bit too much, and the valence was just too thick, and we knocked it off. But we're actually in pretty good shape. We did one lap. I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. And we're struggling here doing the whole crossover, trying to pinch some crew off our cup deal, come across here and help us out. So we're just going to find a balance between how much we want to work here and how much we want to work in the Cup garage. But I feel really happy with this car. I think it's going to be a good piece.
Now, I know you enjoy being back in the Nationwide Series, but it seems like Watkins Glen will be one of the tougher places to go back and forth as far as qualifying. How different are these race cars?
Oh, not too bad. I'm actually, you know, quite okay with it. The Cup car's got a lot of power, and you've got to get used to that. It's probably harder to step back into this without the power and just carry all that corner speed. And you know, I feel good about it. I think both cars feel very similar in the cockpit, and I think that's half the battle.
And Larry, just so you know, they're coming in, they're putting more front spring in the car and putting a little bit bigger front sway bar to try to get this car off the ground. That's Marcus Ambrose.
I would say that'll be a step in the right direction. Now, these guys continue to want to race hard in this practice session. I'm not really sure I agree with all this.
That was number 4, J.R. Fitzpatrick, driving for Kevin Harvick, Inc. in the 07, Chris Zakaris, and he's driving for Armando Fitz.
Delana Harvick is who that 4 car is driving for, and she will be down there and yank a knot in his tail over all that.
Well, this guy is definitely a pre-race favorite. Ron Fellows in the 5 car, 3 wins here in NASCAR Nationwide Series competition. Fellows has also been to victory lane in the Camping World Truck Series twice. So 5 wins at Watkins Glen.
Oldest winner as far as this series here at Watkins Glen. And I think we need to point out that, you know, who was he driving for back when he was making all those wins? Joe Nemechek Racing.
Yep.
We talked about the 87 car, and Brian Patty was crew chief on that car on a couple of events.
Now, Ron also won driving this car for JR Motorsports last year up the road course in Montreal. Headed up toward turn 6. You can hear him playing with the throttle.
You're watching one of the best road course racers in the world.
Now, he grabbed 3rd gear before he even got the top 7. Actually, he was downshifting coming to pit road. Yeah, I thought that was a strange place to shift.
Well, I thought for half a second, just listening to him while he was playing with the throttle, I thought maybe he was getting ready to make a qualifying run. But definitely he brought it back to pit road. Not happy with it.
By the way, Fellows is fastest.
He just jumped in front of this man right here, Kevin Harvick, in this 33 car. Won the Nationwide Series race here in 2007, and as we mentioned in Sprint Cup Series practice, has the win in Sprint Cup in 2006. Got the Copart sponsorship on that car this week.
Harvick has a win here, Nationwide Series competition that came in 2007.
And he just jumped back in front of Ron Fellows. This is what I love about that qualifying tomorrow. This is what you'll see in that NASCAR Nationwide Series style qualifying session, is you'll see guys continue to leapfrog each other. They'll just keep stepping it up as they get in through their 5-minute session.
And one other thing I want to point out is when that session starts, you can run the entire 5-minute session, or you can just run a couple laps and come to pit road. But once you come out of that, back on pit road, your session is done. You can't make any adjustments and then re-enter the racetrack.
And those 2 wins, one of them came here and one of them also came at Montreal. I think it was the inaugural race that we were up there. You know, Kevin Harvick, I read a quote this week. Someone asked him, said, you know, Kevin, you run awfully good on the road courses in Sprint Cup and Nationwide. Does it bother you that no one never mentions you as a road course good race car driver? He said, no, actually, I love it. It lets me fly below the radar on the road courses. He's definitely had his share of success at all the road courses.
34 of our 48 drivers have been on track now.
Kevin's run a total of 5 laps. The most laps has been by the 12 car, Justin Allgaier, who's run 11 laps.
Hermie, what's going on with Denny Hamlin?
Yeah, they're going to make me leave this part of the garage if these guys keep coming in with damage on the front of these cars. But Denny Hamlin went out for a couple laps and actually had some contact on the racetrack, head into a right-hand corner. And they've got some damage on the right front. Denny is out of the car, up in the hauler, talking to members of his crew. But Denny Hamlin, some significant damage on the right front of this 11 car will set them back just a little bit.
You know, there's a fine line out there racing with other cars in practice. As we watch Stephen Wallace in the 66 car right now, he's 16th. You know, there's really nothing gained by running with another car. You know, there's no really aerodynamics that play a role here. I think the only reason sometimes a car will try to run with another car is try to see where maybe he's beating you. Is he beating you under braking, getting in the corner? Is he beating you in one gear versus another? Would be the only real advantage to running or out there doing practice laps
basically
with another
shadowing
car.
somebody or trying to put pressure on them. You're right, Larry, when it comes to something like that. You're out, you know, relatively a rookie or unknown guy. You come out here and get behind a guy like Ron Fellows, you get an opportunity to see where the line is, where his braking points are, and see where he's beating you at. Maybe you can learn a little bit. But you're right. You need to go out there and just kind of like run your own race and keep your nose clean and get your car figured out.
No, one thing, Steve's dad, Rusty Wallace, was a fine road racer.
He really was, Steven. A lot of people talk about road racing aces and everything, and Rusty was definitely one of them. Adapted quite quickly and really made it happen as far as he won here in '87 and '88 and was very, very, you know, competitive every time he showed up here.
Tell you what, this little old 66 car, even though they still have not been to victory lane, they've actually come to life. And I think Trip Bruce going over there and being the crew chief now for Stephen Wallace. Of course, Trip, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series championship crew chief last year with Johnny Benson. I just think it's made such a difference with Stephen, and now they come in here sitting 7th in the Nationwide Series points.
Stephen finished 3rd at O'Reilly Raceway Park and a top 10 finish also at Iowa. Stay with us here on Speed from Watkins Glen. Tonight on Speed, the set heads will be out in full force for NASCAR trackside as Boris Said and Max Pappas stop by for our ultimate Friday night house party. Trackside for Watkins Glen tonight at 7. I made another Wallace mistake. I need to clean up my little mess. Larry Mack gave me a funny look. Stephen Wallace has 2 top 10 starts in a row. He finished 17th at Iowa.
Just keeping you in check.
I know.
That's what makes us a team.
That's exactly right. Let's go back down to Randy.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Brian Vickers in the garage area down here in the General Dollar machine. These guys have really been thrashing. Brian hasn't even gotten a lap in so far. Took it out on the racetrack, and he said it can't even turn it. So they've had to come in here and actually change the steering column. They changed the steering column. The gas pedal was actually hitting on the brace here, the right side brace from his right side leg, so he couldn't get the throttle all the way down. So they basically had to take the entire front end assembly off. The whole hub, everything came off. Brakes. As far as the upper and lower control arm, had to take that off as well. They are still working on this race car, so a lot of work to do. So a little bit like the Cup side where they had brake problems, you know, as far as the Red Bull machine was concerned, this one even more so. So Brian, no laps on the track so far, but he's looking to get out here in just a little while. And Brian, pretty good at this racetrack. 1 start here with the top 5. Hermie?
Yeah, thank you, Randy. And someone else, some brake issues. My man Kenny Wallace coming off 2 straight top 10s. Now, people on TV may think you're sitting down on the job right now, but you're actually working as we speak.
Yeah, we went out with the car, and I went down the back straightaway, and the brakes about went to the firewall, which is scary. You know, I got to slow down. So we're bleeding the brakes. They found a little bit of air in, but I'm concerned. So we'll go out and see if I have better brakes this time.
Talk about the momentum coming off 2 good finishes for you guys. I mean, I know you love this racetrack also. A good time to keep it going this weekend.
It is. You know how it goes, Herm. You got to stay on the racetrack, so we don't want to make any mistakes early. But real excited after coming off, 10th at Indy and then 7th at Iowa. So just don't want to mess nothing up. You know, I've got a lot of time in. I think in Richmond, it'll be 800 NASCAR starts, so trying to keep it on the asphalt.
Kenny Wallace, 800 starts. He must be at least 74 years old. Him and Jimmy Spencer are fit for death. Back to you guys.
Good move there, Hermie. While he's strapped inside the race car, he can't get to him.
Kenny has 2 top 10 finishes here in Nationwide Series competition. And Larry Mack, that is a correct statistic.
That is. That is. Joey Logano in the 20 car. He's 8th quickest right now. He's run a total of 5 laps. You know what's amazing, Joey Logano, I mentioned that he's not been in the car since actually I think he won at Chicagoland Speedway, but missing 6 races. He's run 15 of the 21 races. He's still 8th in the points. Now this 20 car who runs the entire schedule, they are sitting 3rd in the owner points. But of those 15 races, 3 wins, 10 top 5s, and 12 top 10s.
Joey Logano's wins came at Nashville, Kentucky, and Chicagoland.
You know, talking to Joey a few weeks ago, he had a good solid run in the Sprint Cup Series car out at Infineon and got caught up in a late race crash and knocked the fender in. But he felt like that this was not one of his better racetracks. He was a little concerned about this road course here at Watkins Glen. Even though he had a good run a year ago in the Nationwide Series car, he ran in the Camping World East Series here. He still felt like it's a track he just never really got a good hold of.
Finished 7th here 1 year ago.
You know, we were talking about our go or go homers, and we've had 37 cars out on the racetrack. But right now we have 5 go or go home cars in the top 9. Ron Fellows is 2nd, and we have Dave Blaney, Robbie Gordon, Paul Menard, Boris Said back in the 9th position driving the 09 car.
It just doesn't seem right when you talk about those guys in that kind of context. Go or go homers.
And you know, you talk about strategy. We were talking about the strategy and the way you run the Sprint Cup Series race. This is an interesting race because this race tomorrow is 82 laps. There will be some teams that try to do this race on 1 pit stop. What they're banking on is enough cautions to get them through that. But I go back to last year, and Jeff Burton in the 29 car comes to mind. They didn't make it. They came up short trying to make it on 1 stop.
Mentioned Mike Bliss. James Finch parted ways. That 1 car. Ryan Newman now, the pilot of that 1 car.
And I talked to Mark Reno, the crew chief on this car, and he said that right now Clint Boyer is going to be in this car at Michigan and Bristol because Ryan's actually scheduled to drive the 5 car at Michigan and Bristol. But he said, honestly, we don't know beyond that. He said, really what we anticipate, since really the remaining part of the schedule for the most part will be companion events, is we're probably going to keep putting Cup drivers in this car to finish the year out.
Ryan Newman won here in 2005.
You can hear him inside there, really working the throttle, shifting, working around Justin Marks on the 10, and come through turn 7, back out on the front straightaway. Let's listen to him as he goes down into turn 1. And this is not that much different from a Cup car. It may be down just a little bit on horsepower, but otherwise you're using all 4 gears. You work in the transmission. Your braking points and your shifting points may be off just a little bit different because you have more horsepower with those other cars. Plus, they're a lot more top heavy, so you may have to brake a little earlier with the Cup car, and you have an opportunity, to get back on the throttle a little bit different when you run these nationwide cars because they're a little bit down on horsepower.
Yeah, probably the biggest difference is the gearing. If you look at the Sprint Cup Series car, they have an option of a 411 or 422. Pretty much everyone in the Nationwide Series garage with this tapered spacer and the smaller carburetor, their gear rule is a 389 gear, so a substantially a lower number, which is a much higher gear in the Nationwide Series.
Randy Pemberton.
Well, Jason Leffler's Great Clips Toyota up on jack stands right now in a little conversation there. How's the car?
It's really good. It's faster than I am, so that's what I can ask for here at the road courses. Guys are doing a great job. Great Clips Camry. I don't know, we're like 10th on the board, so my agenda is to not miss a shift and to stay on the pavement. And if I can do that, I come away with a top 10, top 5. Never know. We get near the end of this thing, you put yourself in a position to win. But right now, everything's really good.
It's not very often that a driver says the car is better than I am. So what can you do to catch up to that here in this practice session today?
Well, just get laps and I'm just being real humble. You know, I mean, the car's good. I feel comfortable on the road course, especially the more I do it. And we ran 8th and 7th at the last two road courses last year, so we're capable of running better than that. And just look forward to getting laps. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed spicing things up here, and look forward to the race tomorrow.
All right, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Jason Leffler.
Don't you think that's a big part of the battle? He likes it. He enjoys it.
As long as you enjoy it, you'll have a pretty good day.
That's an Earnhardt. We'll tell you about him when we come back. NASCAR Nationwide Series practice continues at Watkins Glen International, about halfway into a 90-minute practice. Going to break, I mentioned the 40 car driven by an Earnhardt. That is Jeffrey Earnhardt, the grandson of the legendary Dale Earnhardt. He is the son of Kerry. His car just went to the garage, so I wanted to mention that.
And he's actually trying to make his very first Nationwide Series start. He was at Dover back in late May and actually crashed in qualifying and didn't get to start that race.
And he has a guaranteed spot. That 40 car is top 25 in owner points, so he will, in fact, make his debut.
Looking at another car that's got a guaranteed starting spot, the 62 car, Brendan Gaughan, is currently 23rd on the charts.
Jeff, he's run almost as many laps as anybody. He's run a total of 12 laps. Justin Allgaier's run 13. And Eric McClure in that 24 car, he must have went out there when practice started and just kept going because he ran a total of 21 laps.
About running out of gas, but with Brendan, he is in a pretty good little dogfight with Justin Allgaier for the Rookie of the Year competition. Allgaier leads him by 10 points.
And I think we have to kind of explain this procedure as far as Rookie of the Year. This is race number 22 in the Nationwide Series. In the Cup Series, it's based on your best 17 finishes. In Nationwide Series, it's based on your best 16 finishes. So once you get past race number 16, it's easy to gain or lose points if you better one of the finishes that you had in the first 16.
38 of the 48 drivers entered have been on track here.
And then they also pay bonus points if you finish in the top 10. You'll get bonus points, bonus rookie points.
Let's go back to Randy.
We got Brad Keselowski down here, car up on jack stands, rear end gear being changed. Let's talk about last week, man. Great job winning that race out there in Iowa.
Thank you, man. That sure did mean a lot for everyone on this GoDaddy.com team, and a big shot in the arm, confidence-wise, and we feel good about that one. We're going to carry that momentum for a while.
How's practice here? What are you working on?
Just a couple different things with gearing and that. You know, just trying to figure this place out, getting a little bit of a rhythm. It's hard to do, but we ran great here last year, and I sure look forward to maybe doing the same thing this year. I think we can.
You keep being in the rumor mill about what's going to happen next year. Are you in those conversations? Are you any closer to what might happen on the Cup side?
I'm still a little ways out, but we'll see how it all comes together. I'm not exactly sure, but right now I'm happy with what I'm doing, so I'm kind of focused on that. And you know, when you're winning races, it's a lot of fun. So you know, trying to keep my head around that and have fun and win races and worry about the future down the road.
But do you think you'll run a full Cup schedule?
Well, you got to think you're gonna. I mean, you got to have a positive outlook to it. So I guess that'd be a yes.
Okay, I tried to snake him into it a little bit. I didn't get too far with it, but back up to you guys.
Well, Randy, what really threw a curveball, I think, at this whole thing, I think we anticipated that he was going to be the heir to the 5 car. Mark Martin was going to drive that car full-time for one season in 2009, and then maybe share the ride with Brad Keselowski in 2010. When Mark announced about a month or so ago he would run that 5-car full-time again in 2010, knowing that Hendrick Motorsports realistically can only have 4 cars,
right,
that kind of threw a curveball to the whole program.
Well, that on top of everything else, I mean, some people were starting to speculate that because of the relationship between Tony Stewart and Hendrick Motorsports, that there was a possibility of a third team being started there, and Brad would wind up in that. And then Tony kind of puts a little bit of cloud over that little scenario from Texas, saying, we think we're a little bit too far down the road.
Said it was doubtful.
Doubtful that we're going to start a third team. Our focus is right now getting in the chase and trying to win the championship. So a lot of things that may have been probable for Brad Keselowski have now gotten a little bit slimmer, and as also he was mentioned as far as possibly doing something with the Red Bull car if it's swapped to Chevrolet. So a lot of scenarios out there kind of, had him included in them. A lot of them are starting to kind of like dry up as further we get into the latter part of the season.
Just saw Paul Menard in the 98 car a second ago. He's 7th quickest, his 2nd quickest go-home car. Here's Justin Allgaier continuing to make laps on this racetrack. He's run 15 laps. He's 20th quickest.
He'll be on trackside next week at Michigan. Want to mention, too, Paul Menard has 2 top 10 finishes here in Nationwide Series competition.
He's actually a pretty good little road racer.
Got a little bit loose off of what would be turn 5 right there, coming back here to the start and finish line of that 12 car for Justin Allgaier there. A lot of rumors about him. He may be getting brought up to the major leagues next year. But I don't know about you, Larry, but I think a lot of these drivers, including Brad Keselowski, they're doing such a good job in the Nationwide Series. If they can't get in the right Cup ride, I hope they'll stay where they are. I mean, I just think it's always defeats the purpose to get too much of a hurry and maybe not take a, maybe get in a ride not as good as their ability, so that, all of a sudden they're trying to carry the car rather than the car carrying them.
Tell you what, this car right here is probably the best example of seeing how much these cars travel when they go into corners. We watched him down the front straightaway, and that car looked like it was 8-9 inches off the ground, the front valence part that we've been talking about. And look as it goes in here into the inner loop of the bus stop. We saw it going into turn 1. Now, of course, it's doing the transition from the left and the right, but how much it just seals against that racetrack.
Hermie standing by with Ryan Newman.
Yeah, I got Ryan. First time in the one car here, and I see when you come in talking to chassis guys and engine guys, what are you guys talking about?
Just actually the engine stuff, just making sure the oil pressure's right and everything's good. If it doesn't breathe right, nothing breathes right. But Miccosukee Chevrolet was pretty good off the truck. Just me getting used to it, getting everything right in the seat, getting the brake pedal and all the springs and stuff like that right. But the car feels pretty good. I just working my way into pushing it harder each run, and it feels like we got a good competitive car.
We talk about it with all the drivers going back and forth. How different is it at Watkins Glen to go back and forth between both cars? That's compared to an oval.
Well, to me, it just gives you, when you do different things and shift different cars to different places, gives you an opportunity to brush up on some of your passing and things like that. So, what you do different in this car, you might be able to apply vice versa and whatnot. But the bottom line is just more experience is definitely better in my opinion. You just have to be able to separate the two, and I'll figure that out when I go to qualify.
You got this race this weekend and a couple of races coming up in the 5-car nationwide races as well. Should be a lot of fun for you.
Yeah, I look forward to it. It's just I enjoy racing, and these guys do a good job, and it's fun racing the Nationwide Series. So we'll see how we can put on a show.
Ryan Newman, these guys can make a couple of changes and get back out. So far, so good for the one car, guys.
All right, thank you, Hermie. We'll take a break. We're 51 minutes into a 90-minute practice. Kevin Harvick leading the way here at the Glen. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nationwide Series practice from Watkins Glen is brought to you by Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing information, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward.
Speaking of Toyotas moving forward, Kyle Busch just moved his Toyota to the top of the charts. He goes in front of Kevin Harvick, run a total of 7 laps, and he actually betters Kevin Harvick by about 0.3 of a second.
Larry, weren't you talking about laps led for Kyle Busch a little while ago in this series?
I wasn't, but I do actually have some numbers.
I was just looking. He's led laps in every single race this year except one, and that was at Las Vegas. I think he crashed. I remember him getting caught up in a big crash early in that race.
Yeah, he's led a lap in 18 consecutive races, but the most amazing thing, he has led 1,821 laps in this series. In all 3 top series, Trucks, Nationwide, and Cup, 3,159 laps. There's guys that hadn't led that many laps in their career.
You see how I led you up on that?
That was perfect.
Sweet.
And just to add a little bit more to that, how much that plays out, he's got 155 bonus points.
He just knocked the cone over, changed his mind.
Out of his way, compared to his close competitor, Carl Edwards, with 90. So he's got 65 more bonus points compared to Carl Edwards.
In the points lead is 207 points, so it almost doubles it.
Almost, it would just about help. I mean, look at it like this: if Carl could get those back, just about cut that lead in half.
Randy.
And we got Kevin Harvick hanging out here. Kevin, car up on jack stands, just got bumped off the top spot on the board, but nonetheless, pretty good first lap for you.
Now, our last lap was our fastest lap.
Well, that's what I meant. You know, one lap, single lap.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's all race trim. So, Copart Chevrolet has been really good, and just making sure everything's good.
Tell me a little bit about being the hottest Camping World Truck Series owner. Man, that guy is on fire. He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Brad Keselowski fires up over here. Kevin does the right thing by covering his ears. But your truck driver, I mean, 51 years old, he's just doing it.
Well, he just seems like it gets better and better every year. So right now, Hornaday and Ren and that whole team are on fire, and it's fun to watch and be a part of that thing since we built it from the beginning. And to see where it is now is a lot of fun to be part of. So just hopefully they can keep it going and carry the momentum through the end of the year.
One quick one. I mean, I know he's a good friend of yours, but he's got to be digging you for a raise by now.
Well, you know how that works, especially in these times.
All right, have good practice.
5 consecutive wins, Randy, for Ron Hornaday.
You know, the biggest thing that I think Jeff and I want to do, since we're crew chief type of guys, is congratulate that crew chief over there, Rick Wren, who with that win became the winningest crew chief in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. 27 wins with 5 different drivers.
You know, the last race of the year at Homestead, 2008, Ron Hornaday had some interesting comments. They basically lost the championship because they had, I think Ron referred to it as a miscommunication on the radio. He said, and Ron said, for us to lose a championship by that, we just redoubled our efforts, and we came back this year even more determined to win.
Well, he'll have an opportunity to kind of like to extend that when they go to Bristol here in a few weeks. But the key thing is, I want to go back to when Randy was talking to Kevin about getting Ron a raise. Talking to the wrong guy. You got to talk to the lady. And while we're talking about raises, if we're going to give the driver a raise, what happened to Rick Wren? He ain't going to win all them races unless he's got a good crew chief. Ain't that right, crew chief?
I'm going to tell you what, they had quite a scare when they fired their engines last Saturday night. That was a brand new truck, and Ron, when he cranked the engine, this is Scott Speed in the 99 car that we're watching out on a practice run right now, but the throttle was sticking, and they raised the hood and shot some penetrating oil onto the throttle rod and got it freed up. But that was kind of a scary moment as they were going for 5 consecutive wins.
Scott Speed, 10th overall in his Toyota. That's actually out of the Michael Waltrip Racing stable.
And, you know, guys, we have not done a lot of Nationwide Series stuff this year. You know, we're going to be doing more and more of their practice and qualifying sessions. Scott's in the car this week, several more races. But I'm going to tell you, I have been so impressed with that young kid, Trevor Bain, that's been driving this car. His qualifying efforts have been absolutely unbelievable. Trevor just doing a really nice job without a lot of starts in a whole lot of racing series when he runs this 99 car. Trevor's actually going to be in the car at Michigan at Bristol, and rumor has it he may join us on our trackside show at Bristol in a couple of weeks.
Trevor Bain set on the pole at O'Reilly Raceway Park in Indianapolis.
Steve.
Jeff.
A little bird just told me, confirmed he will be at Bristol trackside.
A little bird? I call that
Trevor
a fat
Bain.
rat.
Trevor Bain confirmed.
I'm not going that far. I said a little bird.
Actually, that was our producer, Mark Smith, who produces our trackside shows and counts backwards in our ears.
From 10. Robbie
Yeah,
Gordon, 3rd overall.
This is kind of like a home game from him. He's originally from Syracuse, New York, right up the road. I think he was playing golf with his uncle earlier this week.
While he was playing golf, we've got Robbie Gordon. That's one of 3 Toyotas in the top 4 right now. We saw Robbie off the racetrack earlier. He's run a total of 6 laps. He's 3rd quickest in this 55 car, making his very first Nationwide Series start in 2000.
That guy's counting backwards again. I think he wants you to go to
You better hurry. He's at 4.
Stay with us here at Watkins Glen. On board with Steve Wallace, and this is not Hermie Sadler's fault.
I think that would be called loose under braking getting into turn 1.
I'd almost call that wheel hop. End result, same.
Yep.
Spun out.
Good news is Steven doesn't hit anything.
And you know what? The good news for our fans that'll be watching the Nationwide Series race tomorrow, I think on ESPN2, and the Sprint Cup Series race Sunday on ESPN, double file restart shootout style. It's going to be big because turn 1 has always been exciting here with a single file restart.
Let's go to Randy.
Thanks, Steve. Scott Speed has climbed out of his Nationwide Series car. Scott, after practicing the Cup car and now the Nationwide car, break it down for us laymen's that will never sit in the driver's seat. What's the difference here on a road course from driving one of those to one of these?
Well, for us, this is a lot nicer to drive. We're a fair bit more competitive over on this side, but really for me, because my background is, in such a different type of car, both of them feel pretty much the same. They're real big, heavy. These ones definitely have a bit more grip. You can drive into the corners a little bit deeper, and they got a lot less power, so it's you can really stand on the gas when you come off the corner.
Okay, tell us a little bit about this race car. How good is it? Your P8 on the board.
I think it's pretty reasonable. I mean, we ran a real long run there, and it stayed real consistent. The brakes stayed underneath us, which is really important here. I think we're certainly going to be competitive. No question.
All right, good luck to you. Yeah, guys, these, when you talk about Scott Speed, first ever time here in a Cup car, first ever time here in a Nationwide car, and he's been circling these road courses like he did out at Sonoma. Of course, it didn't work out too well for him in the Cup Series when he drove it off the racetrack qualifying, but look for him to be a factor here tomorrow.
But I think Jimmy Elledge, his crew chief over there on the Sprint Cup Series car, he needs to start preaching. Nice, easy lap for Cup qualifying.
You got that right. Slow is good.
Well, there's that number 40 car, maintained, owned by Key Motorsports. Jeffrey Earnhardt, 19-year-old grandson of the late Dale Earnhardt, has a guaranteed starting spot for tomorrow's race.
And he has laps around this road course. He raced here in the NASCAR Camping World East Series. Actually had a pretty solid run here last year.
Last time we saw Jeffrey was at Dover earlier this year.
Yep.
Attempted to qualify. Had a fast race car, crashed in a practice session, had to go to a backup, and then failed to qualify. But a lot of the pressure's got to be off him, knowing that, hey, I'm going to get to race come tomorrow. I just need to go out and run some laps here and learn how to hit my marks.
And then the goal is to make laps. Get that seat time.
We've had 44 of the 48 cars that's here that's been on the racetrack, as we only have about 10 minutes to go in this first practice session.
Sprint Cup Series teams qualify following this Nationwide Series practice.
You know, you're talking about 17 guys doing the double duty. It kind of blew my mind. We've had 15 previous races here. The first time we came here was 1991. And we did not race here in 2002, 2003, 2004. But that first race here, the guy that sat on the pole and won the race, you don't really hear his name a lot to do with Nationwide Series. Terry Labonte sat on the pole and won the race.
Hermie Sadler.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Joey Logano. You see him right here on the racetrack going through the carousel there. They were kind of the opposite of Steve Wallace. We talked earlier, having too much camber gain, the car being free. Well, Joey Logano, his car has been tight, especially on the right-hander. So they came in, actually made a camber adjustment. And also Larry Mack, they came and raised the floats on the carburetor. His car was not actually responding too well when he hit the throttle going to the right. So they adjusted the floats on the carburetor as well as adding camber to his both front tires. So made an adjustment, sending him back on the racetrack.
Yeah, Hermie, and Jeff's certainly aware of this. That's one of the big challenges at a road course where you're going left and going right, and the fuel's going from left to right is getting the float levels, or the car will start sputtering under acceleration.
Kyle Busch leading the way here in Nationwide Series practice. The Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nationwide Series practice from Watkins Glen is brought to you by the auto parts experts at AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Less than 10 minutes remaining in this first of 2 practices for the Nationwide Series teams. They practice again at 5:30 Eastern. They qualify tomorrow morning at 10:10.
Yeah, what we've determined, the 4 cars that's not practiced so far is Michael McDowell, Scott Gaylord, Sean Murphy, and Morgan Shepherd. So we watch Ken Butler III. Right now he's 43rd quickest in this 23 car. He's run a total of 18 laps. But he is a car that's locked into the show.
And Morgan Shepherd is credited with a lap. He's run 1 lap.
Just went out on the racetrack.
You did not remark on the bucolic scenery of Watkins Glen. Coming off that AutoZone.
You know why I couldn't?
No.
I don't know what that means. Does that mean pretty?
Yeah.
Very.
Okay.
It was beautiful.
Yes.
Morgan Shepherd there in the 89 car. Getting a few laps in before this practice winds down. They'll be practicing again about 5:30 Eastern time after Sprint Cup Series qualifying. Talking about laps run, Eric McClure, he was leading it earlier, and he's still up there. He's chalked up more laps. He's run 33 laps in that 24 car, which is a lot of laps around a 2.5-mile road course.
Kyle Busch the quickest, followed by Robbie Gordon, Greg Biffle, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano in your top 5. Stay with us. We'll be back. Final laps of this Nationwide Series practice. Closing moments of the NASCAR Nationwide Series practice from Watkins Glen International's time now for our Sprint Now moment. We'll go back to the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series practice, and boys, Clint Boyer went for a ride.
Hang on to her there, Clint.
It's like Jeff and I were looking at the replay of that earlier. That car was not going to make that corner. The law of physics had absolutely kicked into high gear there. But he said that they had been trying some brake pads. We've been talking about getting too much rear brake. Just the car got very, very loose getting into turn 6 there.
And you can see why that sand trap is there, how close he got to the safer barriers over there. So it's a good thing it was in play. Otherwise, he may have been going to a backup car.
Scott Speed in the 99 car, getting a few laps in here. About 2 or 3 minutes left to go in practice.
And that shot we saw just a minute ago from the speed stage, are they trying to tell us that trackside's coming up?
Trying to tell us to head that way.
Yeah, time to go to work, 7 o'clock. We got guests coming, Max Pappas and Boris Said.
Awesome lineup.
Yep.
Guests aren't bad either, are they?
and you know, you said a minute ago they can't get us out of here. I think they just figured out how. We got to go to work down there.
Yes, we do. You know, the last 5 races here in the Nationwide Series, we've had 5 different winners. The last repeat winner, we talked about him earlier, Ron Fellows won it in 2000, 2001, and then we did not come back here to 2005. 4 different winners since 2005.
Let's take a look at the top 10 here. As we said, big names, and that's to be expected. See a lot of Cup guys, 17 drivers doing double duty. Good job by Justin Marks also, as we said, coming over from ARCA REMAX Series competition. For Jeff Hammond, Larry McReynolds, Hermie Sadler, and Randy Pemberton, I'm Steve Burns. Thanks for being with us.